All right, so here we go. For everyone tuning in, for the panelists, my name is Tony, and we want to thank you all for joining us and being part of the second episode of our Jam Compass webinar called The Link. We're excited to have such a talented group of people with us today, and we want to say hi to all the viewers watching as well. Hope that everyone's staying safe and inside and during all this craziness that's going on. I'm one of the co-founders of Jam Compass, which is a mobile app that will be in beta in the next couple months that will allow creatives and music industry professionals the ability to connect, collaborate, and find real opportunities within the industry. So in the meantime, we wanted to start bringing the music community together to discuss the current state of things. So continuing from last week's discussion, the topic this week will be music in times of pandemic. And we invited everyone here today to give us their take on how they're dealing with it within their sector of the industry.
Wait. There's a pandemic going on?
There is a pandemic. Hopefully over soon, but there is one.
I just never leave my house, so I didn't know there was anything going on.
Before we get to it, for all the viewers tuning in, you can ask the panelists in the Q&A section. If you have any questions for them, put it in there, and we'll get to that near the end. And you can introduce yourself in the chat section on the side. And now I'm going to pass it on to Anthony, my partner in Jam Compass.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us. Like Tony
Not
said,
bad for the delay. I'm a little technologically challenged in the middle of the pandemic.
Oh, you're good, bro. We're good.
You're pandemically challenged.
Yeah. So again, thank you guys for being a part of the second episode of our Jam Compass webinar. You know, me and Tony really appreciate everyone on the panel taking the time out to be with us today, and you know, giving your knowledge out to the community. And we have a really great group of people joining us today. Really excited about this episode. We had incredible feedback on our first one. So again, thank you guys for being here. We're going to be going through each panelist. Introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and obviously how things have changed for you in your field during this pandemic. We're going to start with Chad Richardson.
How did I know you were going to do that?
Chad is a part of the Jam Compass team, songwriter advocate. Chad, please introduce yourself, and let's start.
Well, gosh, I'm trying to figure out how I'm supposed to introduce myself. So I've been in the music industry pretty much my entire life. I've done nothing but that. I was an artist in Canada for years, and then I was a songwriter for years. And then when I turned 40, I was asked to join a publishing company, Ole Music Publishing, where I signed Timbaland, I signed Steven Tyler, a whole bunch of different developing artists. And the great joy and the great surprise that I found in the second half of my career was that I always thought that my love was songwriting, which I still love, but I realized that my actual true love was the art of songwriting. So once I started working with younger songwriters and helping them develop their career, develop their talent, that's when I kind of truly found the thing that I loved. After Ole, I worked at Ole for 4 years. After Ole, I left Ole and I joined SOCAN, which is Canada's PRO, and spent 4 years building up the SOCAN community here in Los Angeles, including the last thing I did was we built the SOCAN offices and studios in Culver City. And then I guess about 2 years ago, just to make it all sappy, my son wrote me a handwritten letter saying that he never saw me anymore, and he wanted his dad back because I was always on a plane. So I quit my job and started my own consulting company, and that's what I do now. One of the things that I'm kind of known for in Los Angeles is. So far to date, I've curated and organized 29 song camps all over the world. The latest venture I've been doing is a partnership with Taylor Parks. Taylor Parks and I created a camp called Burnout. which is it's a first of its kind song camp that focuses on not just songwriting, but on wellness, self-care, mental health. The first half of the day is spent doing Tai Chi lessons, yoga, mindfulness exercises. And then about 3 o'clock, we go into the studio. So we did our first one in October with like Tommy Brown, Sarah Hudson, Ali Temposi, the success. It's asking me where I'm located. Hang on.
Oh, don't worry about that.
Okay. So it was a huge success. And unfortunately, our second one was supposed to be the first week of April with Florida Georgia Line. But
we were supposed to be in Nashville this weekend.
It got closer and closer and closer to, are we actually going to be able to do this? And at the end of the day, we had to cancel it. But one of the things that for me has become a huge passion of mine is songwriter advocacy. So if you go on my LinkedIn, I've written a multitude of articles about my view on publishing, about my view on songwriters, about my view on how underappreciated songwriters are, how powerful songwriters are. Coming from Canada, and I hate to do this, but I've been in the States for 23 years, love the States, but I'm Canadian. You know, Canada just, during this whole pandemic, Canada just gave a $30 million grant to support the arts during this pandemic, while watching TV. The Republicans are on there railing against why there's any arts funding whatsoever in the $2 trillion package. And one of the things that I really noticed, I lived 14 blocks away from the World Trade Center when it fell. And I went through all that whole experience. And the reality is that when all these tough times happen, people look to the arts, people look to movies, people look to music, they look to these things for escape. They look to these things for hope. They look to these things to feel better, you know? And it's astounding to me how unappreciated that really is. And that's why at the same time, I feel there's, you know, we're all going through this knee-jerk reaction right now of like, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? But I think everything's going to calm down and everyone's going to calm down. And I think there's a real lane here for people to start appreciating music in a way they never have before. Because frankly, they're all just sitting at home trying to figure out what to do, listen to music, find hope, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there you go.
Awesome. Thanks, man. And Jam Compass has been fortunate enough to be a part of the burnout camps with Chad and Taylor. We were supposed to be in Nashville this weekend sponsoring the second one, but obviously that was postponed until further notice. But it's really great cause that they're putting together, and to put together an incredible group of creatives just to create music in one sense, but to touch on and teaching them a lot of the things that can help them battle mental health and all those things. I know for a fact, talking to some of the people that went, it's been really effective for them.
Well, I mean, our main thing was that, you know, I mean, I was a songwriter for 10 years. Our main thing is this, and please don't anyone take this the wrong way. This is just years of doing this. To be a songwriter, to tap into those emotions, there is a certain amount of extremeness within our emotions that most people don't experience, right? And a lot of people in this industry, they find people who can tap into that, who might have problems, who might have addiction issues or issues with just struggling to get by. And the industry goes, wow, that shit's fueling these incredible songs. And that's all they care about. So what they do is they let them burn out, no pun intended. They let them write all these incredible songs. They don't care anything about if they're getting by in life. and then they move on. And Taylor was the one that really said to me, we need to start fighting for ourselves and for our own mental health and show that we can still tap into these emotions, but at the same time, take care of ourselves and take care of each other.
Awesome, man. We love it. All right, cool. Let's go over to Reazy. He's got to leave us a little bit early, but definitely want to tap in. I've been homies with Reazy for, I don't know, 10 years now.
Yes,
If y'all don't know Reazy, he has probably the biggest record on TikTok. Crazy viral challenge. The Kardashians, everyone in the world was dancing to the Renegade. Well, guess what? That's Reazy. So what's going on, man? How you been holding up during these times, during the pandemic?
You know, to be honest, like I was hoping like to have some time to just create. Like I always want to like put it in a positive perspective where like I was like searching for time to really dig into work and to like really just like experiment with sounds and stuff. And right now I feel like I have all the time in the world to do that. And I feel like it's affected me. It hasn't really affected me in a negative way because I pretty much, you know, always am making music. But I feel like, you know, as like my friends say, like sharpening your sword, like just doing little things that are just fine tuning with this time, not letting it go to waste. As far as like for the industry itself, a lot of records, I mean, in my side of the industry has a lot of records like and projects have stopped regardless of what they're saying, like, you know, music industry still going and when a lot of stuff has stopped. So I feel like us as creators, this is the time to really, you know, level yourself up and challenge yourself more, even if, you know, you think at a certain level you're working by yourself and it's hard to like really, you know, get some type of inspiration. Like this is the time where you can dig deep and just figure out, you know, creatively the next place to go, because I guarantee when this all stops, we're going to be in a whole different space, even in the music industry and sound. Like certain things are going to surface, different people are going to figure out different things. And me personally, I want to be part of that. So that's where my head is as far as like in the pandemic, how I'm dealing with it is I'm just using the time to just level up, I guess, musically.
But don't you think that's the brilliance of the fact that we're now finally into the world of streaming? Because if this had happened years ago, yeah, nobody can go out and buy CDs.
Yeah.
But
that
now
would really be messed up. I feel like we're not as bad off as we would have been 10 years ago. It would have been terrible, right?
We're way better off because once people calm down and understand what's going on, I mean, you know, streaming is now our biggest, is a help to us in this as opposed to a hindrance.
Yeah. Were you gonna say something, Troy?
Yeah, I just was curious for like, oh, sorry about that. For like Reazy, Rachael, Charlie, like, how are you guys functioning through it? Like from a creative standpoint, how do you like channel this and every other creator, but how do you channel this into productivity? Because like, I'm sure there's people in the chat who are like, it's a little easier said than done. So like, what are you guys doing to find that balance and stay productive with everything?
Me personally, I went back to like how I did it when I was living in my mom's house trying to make beats. I remember like just doing little things like turning the Xbox on for a game, making a beat, playing a game or something like that. I'm doing that same thing now, and I haven't been able to do something like that in a long time where I could just relax and work at my own pace, go back to a beat and really listen.
Now you got a reason to.
Yeah, now I can sit here and do that all day. You know, of course it's gonna end sooner than later, but right now, I mean, staying, you know, this is just speaking to everybody staying safe. Like I'm enjoying being in the house like this, being able to just 4 o'clock in the morning come into the studio and start doing something in the studio whenever, wake up whenever and just work and really put down ideas.
Yeah.
Hard to do. Like even like it, like right now nowadays, like producers who are trying to go the different route of like being an artist also, that's the route I'm trying to go. There's a lot of other things that hinder us from always being able to create all the time. And that's why I'm just really this is the best time for us to just really, I guess, buckle down and put some, I guess, extra effort into it.
The crazy thing about the music industry is that I think it's one of the only industries that is literally constantly in transition.
Yeah.
It never stops transitioning.
Yep.
From how we do it, how we listen to it, how we buy it, how we consume it, to now. It's like it's always transitioning. Exactly. So we're always trying to figure out that moving target and how to center on it.
Well, speaking of transitioning, Reazy, you know, tell us and tell the audience too, just about, like, you know, you had how many 20 million TikTok videos?
20 million.
I mean, I literally, there was like a month where I literally, all I heard was Renegade. So tell us about how that even happened, the process, you know, like obviously you can't just like wake up and say, I'm gonna make a beat for TikTok today. But just tell us about that, how that all transpired.
I mean, it started like with Instagram, and people were dancing to it on Instagram, but Instagram is not really the app where you can showcase dancing. So I guess the same dancers shifted it over to TikTok. And that's where, I guess, you know, everybody wants to learn to dance. That led to the song itself blowing up. Now, I like the way that TikTok runs because it's like, if you use it to your advantage, it's free promo. In a time like this, you can break a song by using TikTok. And I feel like it has to be organic. It can't be forced. A lot of people think you can just, it's not nothing that we planned. It's not anything that we were trying to do. It's just something that turned into, I guess, a focus because, like, think about it. You could put out your song and you can see if the world likes your song before you actually put a push behind it. The TikTok push and the industry push is two very different things. So I feel like even if you wanted to throw a record out to see how it does, you can do that on TikTok. There's no, you know, shame in doing that. And a lot of new artists are being discovered from that platform. So I feel like, you know what I mean? It's all good. It's not I don't see anything bad with it. I know some people are like, you know, being like at the forefront of like just having like a viral video on there. People get tired of the song. They get tired of it. They get tired of TikTok. And I feel like people are just going to find new ways to just keep being creative with it. And I feel like, hey, anybody could do that on TikTok. I'm not saying that was a special thing. It's not like, it's just that it was just a perfect timing, I guess.
You know, one of the great things about TikTok, honestly, and all those platforms, and Vine was the same way, is that I always used to argue with people when I was an artist back in the 90s, is that, you know, people would always go, oh, your talent. And I would say, everybody has creativity. Everybody has talent. Everybody has some kind of creative entity inside of them. And the one thing that's amazing about TikTok is you watch that stuff and it blows your mind how much creativity is out there by just average, normal people who are not looking to be stars or artists or anything.
Yeah, I found myself like, just going through TikTok, like, but by the hour, just looking like that's how like intrigued I am by some of the videos. Like some of the things that people are doing is so creative. You got to keep scrolling. Then I get to a point like, oh, am I really on TikTok like this? It's crazy. But it's captivating right now where I guess in this time, we're such a visual, I guess, visual people right now that TikTok works. If you take away anything visual, if we're talking just on the phone right now, even this is not as appealing as it would have been 10 years ago when we couldn't do this. Like, it's just so much things that's needed to push music. Visually, you need stuff like that.
Well, and plus
I think
they set it up perfectly because we're an ADD generation, so we can only handle 5 seconds of anything, right?
Yeah.
I think
definitely is.
it's interesting as well because we've always had music videos. Sorry, hi everybody. Thank you. I came off another stream and then had to jump onto this one. We've always had since the birth of music videos, people have always wanted to connect a visual to how the music makes them feel, and it's just really interesting to see fans expressing how the music connects to them. You can already tell whether the song you've made is like danceable. Like you can make something in the studio and be like, this is a hit, and it's not until you see other people dancing to it and they actually care about it. And it's a really like immediate visual way of determining whether a song hits the way you wanted it to hit. I think it's brilliant. I think loads of people definitely hate TikTok because they feel that it takes it away from musical integrity, and there definitely are artists making songs for TikTok and we all know who they are, but like also people made the cha-cha slide. If the cha-cha slide was out now, that would have been huge on TikTok. And it still was huge then. I just think you kind of have to take it with a pinch of salt. And
it's the Tootsie slide.
What do you guys think is compromising the hit? Like right about now, like what components make a song a hit these days?
You definitely have to have viral presence to make a hit. Like that's 100% in the picture now. Usually before, nobody could know you and you could have a big song. And now you can't do that. Like it's just, I don't know, like it's just a thing where you have to have some type of internet presence to have a hit record.
Yeah, even Lewis Capaldi doing ballads, which is not fit for TikTok at all. His personality is viral, 100%. Like that's what his Instagram videos and him being so opposite to the music he made is what made that do as well as it did, I think, as well as the song obviously being great.
I'll jump in there. I will say, I think, Reazy, to your point, a viral presence isn't necessarily required for a hit. What I will say it's required for is longevity, because the viral presence will keep people coming back. You know, we look at someone like Arizona Servas right now, who has this massive song in Roxanne. And, you know, he has a ton of, you go through his catalog, you see the numbers there. He has just going through his Spotify index, you just see massive amount of plays on all of these records. But this is kind of the first time that he's in this national spotlight now because of this huge record that he has, which, you know, to the point that we're all talking about, has been amplified by TikTok. So in regards to whether or not he's here to stay, of course, will now kind of tie into the holistic brand that he's bringing to the table, not just necessarily what Roxanne has kind of opened doors for him.
But let's all be honest as well. I mean, the word viral doesn't mean the same thing now as it did 5 years ago, meaning things did go viral out of the blue, but a lot of things and that still happens, of course, but there's also a lot of strategy behind viral videos now. You know what I'm saying? Like there are marketing teams behind making something viral.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
So, Anthony, so let's Anthony, why don't you introduce yourself too, and then let's definitely like transition into what you do, because I think it kind of works really well after, you know, speaking about TikTok and everything.
Definitely. So I'm Anthony de Padua, frequently known as ADP. I'm a digital marketing director over at RCA Records, and a lot of my day-to-day just mostly revolves around trying to figure out how to maintain or build relevancy for the roster of artists that I work with. Recently I was formerly at Atlantic Records, worked alongside artists like Cardi B, Burna Boy, and most recently Jack Harlow, who is, you know, blowing up right now with a song of his own. And, you know, you look at someone like Jack, for instance, and, you know, we did a ton of work with Jack. We did everything from lining him up with Bleacher Report, lining him up with Barstool, you know, all these sort of just digital activations that were all, I would compare to repeated hits on the rock where we were waiting for it to crack. And then, you know, once Jack finally dropped this record that he has right now, What's Poppin', he's going through the roof right now, and it's just everything's coming his way. But prior to that, you know, there was just a lot of groundwork laid where it was just putting Jack's music in different digital components. You know, we collaborated with the Future Kings, who, you know, would eventually blow up thanks to their participation in the Baby's Bop on Broadway video. So, you know, it's a lot of groundwork prior to then necessarily having one record go off. And with What's Poppin', that's kind of, it was kind of a situation where the song itself preceded any sort of viral moment. And now the record itself is starting to blow up on TikTok, but this is, 100 million streams after the fact. So I think it's TikTok can certainly be an accelerator for a record, and it can help it can bring someone from 0 to 100. But then there's other situations where a record kind of blows up on its own first and then eventually transitions to TikTok. I mean, right now we have an artist like Ciara who definitely, you wouldn't necessarily categorize as a TikTok artist, and her song Level Up, which had been out for a good amount of time, is now starting to see a moment on TikTok of its own, because it's not even a dance that people are doing to it. There's a challenge where people are quite literally leveling things up. So it's like whether kids are jumping over a stack of cups and they keep stacking the cups up, or just some other sort of like stacking sort of method, whether it's like toilet paper or any other sort of item. I think the brilliance of TikTok, and this is a point that I wanted to piggyback on prior that was made, is that the creative aspect of the platform truly sometimes gets lost, because there is that stigma that TikTok is for teens and it's a bunch for kids, and that all it is a bunch of dance videos that are just like kind of, move like hand movements. But once you get past that, there are some truly incredible creatives on that platform. There's this one kid that I worked with recently on a campaign. His name is Micah, and he does these transitions that you would think are like CGI effects, and it's just really, he's utilizing the tools of the platform, which is crazy to think. So on that note, I think TikTok is great once a person is able to truly fully take in all that the platform has to offer.
Awesome, man. And then any tips you can give to artists, independent artists on approaching a marketing campaign? I know a lot of artists in the community are, really wanting to release a lot of music right now. So what are a few like tips that you would kind of get started on approaching, working with an artist to help with the marketing side?
Totally. I mean, in this current situation that we're dealing with, it's obviously everyone's inclination is to now double down on content more than ever before, because, people are at home, people are looking for things to consume. But the hardest thing is trying to figure out what kind of content makes sense for you and what kind of content makes sense for your audience. Not everyone is Tory Lanez. Not everyone is Boozy. Not everyone's going to hop on IG Live and just do some craziness. And not everyone is going to be able to do live performances either. So not everyone could just do a bedroom acoustic performance or do some sort of studio performance as well. So I think and this is obviously easier said than done, of course, but the true challenge for an artist and for that said artist's marketing team or just his collaborative team is to kind of figure out what makes the most sense for their brand and to kind of execute that, whether that means investing in some animated content, investing in some like performance pieces that are done from the comfort of your own home. We look at someone like Kalani as well, who put a video out during this sort of quarantine period, and it was just basically shot in what looked like her living room and her bathroom as well. So I think the biggest challenge that this quarantine presents is that, despite everything obviously being so digitally based, whether it's how we consume our music, how we watch videos, how we listen, being outside is necessary for things like shooting videos, for performances, for concerts. And a lot of artists live and die by touring. So it's trying to figure out how to supplement that huge component of your brand without necessarily sacrificing.
All right. Awesome, man. All right. Thank you for that. We're going to go to Rachael.
Sorry to cut you off, guys. I got to head out. So I just wanted to say deuces to everybody.
Reazy, thanks for being on, man.
No problem.
Reazy, congrats on your success. Keep it going, man.
Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, we watching, bro.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Troy. All right, man.
Thanks, Reazy. Hey, Rachael, how are you? Please introduce yourself. Let us know how you've been doing during these times, how you've been adjusting.
Yeah, no, my name is Rachael Kennedy. I'm 1/3 of the songwriting production trio LIONCHLD. I'm originally from Canada, as well as Chad. I've actually worked with a couple of lads in here. Troy, what's up? So
Appreciate you,
yeah,
Reggie.
what's that?
Oh no, I really appreciate you.
Oh yeah, you too. But so I moved from Canada about 5 years ago. Chad was actually one of the first guys I ever worked with here. He like totally set up all my first sessions, and when I was just a young buck. And yeah, I just now working with LIONCHLD full time. So this has been kind of like an interesting experience because I work with these two other songwriter producers, Natalia Marshall and Lance Ship, and the three of us work pretty much exclusively together, like 5 days a week, 10 hours a day in the studio. So this has been, the good thing is that we're all pretty self-sufficient because we all do all parts of the process. And so like I have like a little setup now at my house, and they've got a setup. So it's been like and everything is it's so easy to like start an idea here, send it over there. So we've been actually like collaborating in this, and it's been sort of refreshing. Like what Reazy was saying before, that he feels almost like he's gone back to his roots in terms of like being at his mom's house. And I feel like I've started doing that a little bit too, and just like picking up the guitar and just writing, like, you know, it's like allowed me time to have a little more, like start an idea from a individual perspective, whereas most of my career in the last 5 years has been like very collaborative, very much like in the room, and I love doing that. But it's been really cool having the time to like kind of just nurture that individual creativity a little bit and then bring it, which I just don't do a lot of. So that's been really awesome. And like I just feel really lucky that we all sort of have our own setup and we can send ideas back and forth. And it's actually been like working pretty well for us, but I do miss the like in-room collaboration. I'm missing like my buds. They're like my best friends. So it's like,
are you working exclusively apart right now, or?
Yeah. I haven't seen them in like 3 weeks, which is so weird because like,
Wow.
I see those guys all the time. So I'm
That
like,
is weird.
I'm like, I miss them so much. But it's been, we've been managing, and it's actually been like a really different creativity, which I think has been refreshing. And
so how's that collaboration work now? Is it like you start something, send it away, and see who finishes?
Yeah. So like sometimes I'll start an idea, I'll send it over, and we'll like finish the lyrics together, or Natalia starts something, sends it. Sometimes Lance starts something, sends it, and then we kind of just do our thing, and then we'll FaceTime and just try to finish the lyrics or like make any little tweaks. But it's been really cool because we're all such different people as well, that it's like we're getting these really different songs, but it's really cool. It's actually been a really cool process for us. But
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely an adjustment. I mean, there's definitely a magic that you get in person in the studio that is kind of tough to emulate
totally.
digitally. But I think over time, we'll get closer to that as technology increases in that sector.
But just think of how crazy the explosion is going to be once we all walk into the room together for the first time again.
I know.
To create something, you know what I mean?
It's going to be fun for sure. All right, let's move over to Politik.
What's up?
What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good, given that I'm trapped in my house. But
yeah,
we're all dealing with it.
Yeah, for someone who is in a different city every weekend, playing at some of the best clubs in the world, definitely want to touch on what your thoughts are, future of nightlife, clubs, shows in general. I know that's, something that you thrive in. So, yeah, introduce yourself and let us know what your thoughts are, how things have changed for you.
Yeah, so I'm Paul, also known as DJ Politik. I've been a club DJ basically since high school. I've toured all over the world doing various nightclubs, events, corporate events, weddings, bar mitzvahs, you name it. It's been a really insane month, really, just kind of all the shows being canceled, no real outlook on when venues and events are going to kind of start happening again. So, we're all kind of just in this unknown state as gigging DJs. But again, it's really kind of opened up a lot of time for us to focus on what we want to do next. I'm moving more into production and publishing stuff. Me and Anthony own and operate a studio in Hollywood. So really it's kind of allowing us to really focus more on what's next. A lot of club DJs kind of, I feel like, get stuck in this sort of closed-minded mentality where, you kind of don't really know what to do after DJing clubs. It's an industry where, you could work 10 years and not really move up and have any benefits or any sort of movement in your career. So it's kind of allowed me to, focus on what's next, music, collaborating with songwriters, other producers, and all that good stuff.
Definitely. I think it's really a really important time for DJs to really diversify their portfolio right now and pick up some other additional revenue streams. I mean, anyone in the creative field, really. But yeah, I mean, it's a scary time for the DJ community. Like you said, there's not much that we know right now on when things will get back to normal. And then when the governor does lift these, restrictions, how will things, kind of transition back to when we were able to DJ in clubs?
Yeah, I mean, just to give you guys some insight on what I've heard from my sources in the kind of like nightclub operations world, they're anticipating when things do start to reopen that their capacity is going to be significantly decreased.
Yeah.
Probably like half of what their normal capacity is when they reopen. That's what it's going to be. I've heard from some pretty reliable sources that there may be some sort of screening, some sort of like, I don't know, in China, they're doing some really like crazy things with apps where they're tracking if you've been in touch with anyone with the virus and where you've been, and all these like kind of tracking, ways to track people. So I've heard that there may be something like that they try to implement. It's kind of hard to imagine going to a nightclub and having to show them your like medical history or something. But
I remember when SARS was going on, every time I would travel to Toronto, you'd get off the plane and they do one of the, those temperature things that they can just point at your head for a second.
Yeah.
They just pointed at your head, and if you were fine, you'd move along, right?
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if that type of stuff starts getting in,
Yeah, we've been seeing like,
implemented.
in China, they've been wearing helmets that basically detect your temperature and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to have to deal with a door guy, which is normally very difficult to deal with. On top of that, him checking your temperature, which,
yeah.
I mean, this is the world we live in now. So I guess that's a normal part of it.
I think also, the fact that this virus affects so many people differently, the fact that people are asymptomatic, there really isn't a way to know. So really it's going to boil down to just people, the kind of overall, kind of like mood and vibe people have once we kind of start reopening things. I think until there's a vaccine or some sort of real peace of mind, it's really going to be interesting. I mean, I think smaller venues will probably, start to, pick up the slack, but the bigger venues, Vegas, where there's thousands of people walking into a club, it's kind of hard to imagine that restarting really quickly. So, we'll see.
There's also, in other countries, they've started handing out certificates of if you've got the antibodies. So if you've been asymptomatic, you've been tested, they're giving out clearance certificates that you have to carry around with you saying that you've had the virus and you're fine now. So there is that as well. So hopefully that will just become more of a thing where you can flash something and just be like, I don't have the disease, and or I've had it and I'm fine. And if you've got the antibodies, then you can obviously go back to work.
Yeah. Violet, can I ask where you are right now?
I'm actually in LA.
You're in LA, okay.
Yeah, so I'm British, but I was out here working, and I've kind of split my time quite evenly now since I got my visa. So I was kind of caught here when it happened. I just don't want to fly home and infect my parents, so I'm staying here for the time being.
Smart.
Yeah, and it also, I've been reading a lot about the ID 2020, and you know, a lot of our information is going to be maybe stored on a blockchain down the road in a database where, you know, it's kind of like a QR system to kind of show if we've had the disease or the virus and stuff like that. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this pans out in that way. Let's move over to Abby.
What's up, guys?
How are you, man?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. So,
please introduce yourself. Tell us what you do and how it affected you.
Yeah, music lawyer. So it's affected me in a number of things. On the touring side, obviously, everything's kind of stopped right now, and everyone's shows got postponed. But on the other hand, on the deal side, including record deals, publishing deals, we've actually been like busier than ever. I think everyone right now that's ever gotten a proposal from a major label or a major publishing company is rushing to grab that money. So literally, I'm pretty slammed. I'm in the office. No one's here though, so don't worry. I'm quarantining, but it's been super busy. And I think labels also aren't really slowing down from what I see. I actually thought a lot of labels would kind of back off and cut deal flow. But we're closing some really big deals even during Corona, and it's kind of surprising to me myself. Hopefully this doesn't end, but it could just also be the very early stages of what's going on, in that maybe next month people are going to slow it all down and kind of wait to see where everything goes. But on that end, yeah, deals are still happening. Music is still being made. Streaming is still doing well. So from that perspective, I think we're still lucky to be in a business that's still thriving under the current circumstances.
I can tell you when I worked at SoCan, the numbers were astronomical. Like the streaming numbers were exponentially going up. And I'm a firm believer that it's just going to keep going because everyone's just sitting home listening to music. There's nothing else to do. So I think streaming is going to, in fact, take a whole other boom than it did a little bit ago.
Totally. And like what was said earlier, this hasn't really been published, but I was just kind of thinking about this too. I think people as listeners and consumers of music are also going to start to change the way they listen to music. I think now that people have more time, it might not be so much of a singles-oriented mindset anymore, and people might have more time to kind of dive into albums now and really appreciate projects. And I think it's a little early to tell, but like I'd love if that was kind of the case where, you know, we moved back to more of like an album-based perspective where people really kind of dove into projects and appreciated projects as a whole, as opposed to just listening to singles.
That would be good. That'd be good, I think. And Abby, we touched last week on, you know, I was reading some stuff on Billboard and how the pandemic is changing a lot of contracts, especially in the live space. What do you see? I mean, internally in your firm, has there been discussions on how this can change a lot of deals moving forward when it comes to contracts?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen it get implemented yet. On some of the deals that I've seen recently, there's been some negotiation in what they call the force majeure clause, which is the clause that is put into contracts that allows a contract to be excused or terminated if, for example, there's a natural disaster or a hurricane or weather that won't allow a concert to kind of happen. People are starting to incorporate epidemics or pandemics into that, and specifically writing, you know, COVID-19. And insurance companies that insure the live shows are actually carving out COVID-19 from their policies. Like they're actually acting up quickly because insurance companies don't want to pay for. Insurance companies do everything they can not to pay, right? So that's a new thing that they're putting into their contracts so that they don't cover canceled shows under these circumstances. Well, that's why you're seeing a lot of people, instead of canceling a show, they'll postpone it. And that's why everything's pretty much being postponed, so that anyone that's received a deposit isn't returning the deposit. Any ticket sales that have been sold or money made is still being kept, and they're just going to be kind of pushed off a couple months until hopefully this all settles.
Yeah, I guess Fire Festival is ahead of the curve. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. I think with the exception of yeah.
That's hilarious. All right, awesome, man. Thank you. Let's move over to Troy Carter Jr.
What's up, bro?
What's up, my bro? How are you, man? Tell us, give us a little intro and tell us, how this has affected you and what you've been working on.
My name is Troy Carter Jr., formerly of Human Resources, the distribution label, now representing talent at Faze Clan. And honestly, I'm just happy to be in the entertainment industry in general because things have sped up on both sides of the fence, from like the music to esports and digital gaming content is through the roof right now. We've like seen that this dead time is like driven everyone who makes content is up right now, from like Snapchat viewership to TikToks, YouTube. Things are booming, and so I'm just fortunate to like be on this side of the fence. And for us, it's content that I've noticed, and that's the thing is like we're seeing the guy, like it's all about adjusting and people who can make the best lemonade out of these lemons we've been handed. But things are going well. Like I'm fortunate for that. There's a lot going on, so we try and just take it seriously. But yeah, the esports and music worlds are synergizing like no other before. Like Anthony, you know very well, we've been in touch with labels who are now trying to get their guys streaming with the esports and content creator talents, and it just shows like where our industry is going. I think with all of us being tapped into music, I see it as all entertainment, and it all kind of just gels together. Where like the philosophy I've seen, bro, is like I've never been in a studio, maybe outside of LIONCHLD, but that doesn't have like an Xbox or a PlayStation there, and that kind of just lets you know that it's all intertwined, and so we're fortunate to just be on this side of the landscape. And now, like Avi said, it's kind of booming, and we're just playing catch up, but rather be busy than bored. So that's all.
Yeah, and with what we do, Troy, even a lot of our guys, the concurrent viewership, which is the average amount of people watching these live streams on Twitch, it's up big time right now. A lot of these guys are went from maybe 15,000 concurrent viewers a month to 30,000. So that's why the exposure in the Twitch and live streaming space from the esports perspective is really growing a lot. And we touched on it last week, but we're very close to really adapting on the music side. And I think there's a lot of money to be made in the streaming world. So it's going to be really exciting to kind of see the transition. And we're seeing it now,
like Twitch and SoundCloud's partnerships and things like that. Like it's all intertwining now more than ever.
Yeah, we're seeing it now, and we're going to start to see a lot of a lot of the stuff we do with Anthony too. I mean, he gets it on the esports and music side. So it's going to be exciting to kind of see these labels and artists and producers and stuff really taking advantage of that additional income that could be had.
Yeah, content is king right now. That's the one thing that I can say is like, whether it's streaming, whether it's YouTube, TikTok. Fortunately, all these platforms are now monetizable for these influencers. But that's going to be the real winner throughout this whole pandemic. Is like those who can keep up with the flow of content that they'll need to produce. And I'm just like stressing to my guys not to put too much pressure on themselves, not to burn out. But whoever can keep producing the most original content is going to be the winner.
Yeah, and then obviously working for such a massive influencer network like Faze Clan and you guys being on the forefront of music and gaming and what can you recommend to a lot of the music artists to start transitioning over to into that world?
Just do it. But I also, the biggest thing for me when I'm dealing with anyone in the music industry and I'm trying to translate the gaming world to them is just to respect the industry the same way you would music. Just even in talking to labels, like I've had to explain that, sometimes they'll look at the talent as just gamers or whatever, but I've had to tell people like the gamers I deal with are bigger than the artists you have in their worlds. And not to be an asshole or anything, but it's like you have to respect the grind and the work that these guys have put in because, they work hard to get where they at. It's hard work. A lot of these guys work day in and day out. They shoot their own content, they edit it, but they're very business savvy. And I relate it to like, you know, Meek Mill's my favorite rapper, for example. And it's like, you're not going to tell him, yo, you're about to do this feature with Lil such and such. You know what I mean? And he's just going to say yes. And it's the same thing with these esports and YouTube content creators is like, you have to respect what they've built for themselves more than anything else. So I think anyone who's looking to transition now, like there's a lot of artists with downtime and looking to get into gaming and set up, it's just you have to respect the industry, the work that goes into it, and the DNA of being in it.
I got to tell you, my son is 12 years old, and like he's constantly, I mean, you know, obviously I've been doing music my whole life. He's been around it his whole life. But the shit he brings me blows my mind. And every single thing he brings me, I'm like, dude, where did you hear this? It's always a game. It's always the soundtrack to a game every single time. It's like the only place he's getting his music. And some of it is just, it's crazy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. The FIFA soundtrack from 2020 is insane. So whoever's curating that, shit,
man,
for real.
And the Jam Compass guys, you know, the next step is to figure out how do we get the API right where these count as streams. You know what I mean? Because that's how I feel. I don't think these artists should get one-time deals for having a song placed in a video game. We got to figure out how to track it. How is this monetized every time it plays? Because think about all the video games being played worldwide. Exactly.
Yeah, sorry, it's exactly the same with TV. You get a one-time fee, but you also get residual rights. So it should work with gaming as well, especially seeing it's being used and played. And also, if people is then on Twitch, that music is often getting played again on other platforms. So it should be monetized properly.
Yeah, we're we're working on it for the, we have the app, and then once we get the app running, we have a second platform we're going to be working on it, which is kind of a forward-thinking distribution and marketing system. So we'll touch on that in the future, but definitely we are working on that, which is going to be very exciting for the community. Let's move over to Violet and Charlie. I figured I'd kind of bunch you guys up together since you guys work together so much. You guys are both creatives. Definitely introduce yourselves. Tell us more about She Writes and what you guys have, what you guys have going on and how you guys have been adapting.
Do you want to go first or shall I go first?
You go.
Hello, I'm Charlie McClean. I'm a producer, songwriter, and engineer. I'm calling in from Hamburg in the nighttime in Germany. I run alongside Violet. We run together She Writes all-female writing camps. So we normally, in addition to doing everything that we usually do in our actual jobs, we run around the world hosting writing camps. So it's been like a really strange time on kind of all fronts, where long-term plans are gone, but actually, as you know, everyone else has been saying, short-term plans, like we're in such an amazing time of being able to do such wonderful creative things. So it's kind of a real mixed bag at the moment. How do you feel, Violet?
Yeah, She Writes is a weird one because for the first time ever, we run kind of like an open audition situation. So we do have anyone can send us their music, but in the last, since January, we've had over like 200 applications, and obviously all of that music needs to be listened to, especially if these are female producers. It takes time to go through and really analyze what level they're at, how much experience they've had. So this is actually the time we've now got someone working with us to go through and listen to I think it's in total 400 applications that need going through. So we have time to kind of sit, recoup, and then when our camps come round, I literally yesterday found another brand new 5 female producers because I'm spending more time on the internet. Previously, before She Writes started, we had like 6 months of curation that we did that took up a lot of time with just me and Charlie on the internet looking for women. But now I have a bit more time to kind of go through that stuff. So I hope that when we do come back with camps, I mean, obviously we were going to go to, what was it, Korea and
Korea, Norway, London,
Stockholm.
FYI, I know a lot of incredible women producers, so hit me up.
Please. I mean, we obviously, Rachel, we know you guys already, but we know loads of them, but actually they're starting to emerge, which is really interesting. There's a community of women who have previously only ever really dabbled in producing their own vocals, and now being forced to produce at home, which is not really the way I ever saw women coming to the top. But if people come out of this now being able to produce, I'm not about to complain. It kind of levels the playing field, because previously we've seen women have often been at a disadvantage, because I don't want to say boys club, because often it's just boys are friends and they work together in the studio, but now everyone's being separated. So if you're good, you're just good by yourself at home. And Victoria Monet, for example, has just been posting acapellas, and a bunch of girls have reproduced them and she's reposted them, and it's really interesting to see when people are kind of like forced to do it alone, and also that you can't really be scared anymore. You just have to do it. You have to do that or you're not making music. It's going to be really interesting.
And like when you guys are looking to bring in new female talent, what are the traits that kind of stand out to you guys?
Charlie's probably best on the producer side for that.
I think from the producer angle, what we tend to be looking for is sort of like solid all-round skill in terms of like beat making and structure and good sounding quality songs. It's not about somebody already having massive hits, because like just the sheer numbers game, almost no female producers have big hits. Most of them are kind of simmering around like maybe the middle ground at most. A lot of really amazing talents are completely unknown, or we find them in like places that you wouldn't go to. They're not in like LA or somewhere, they're somewhere else, so that, and they're just not getting any exposure. Yeah, Finland, good example.
Awesome.
I mean that if you're watching, we have a really wonderful example. But normally the people that we find, they are extraordinarily talented, but they maybe don't have the confidence to present themselves in a way where you're like, wow, this person is straight off the bat, this person is like, bam, right, ready to be, pitched to major labels, major publishers. They might sit there and be like, oh no, I'm a songwriter. And then you find out that they're insanely talented when you might be sitting in the session with them and they're like, oh, I made a beat. And then it turns out to be insane. The women that we tend to find and tend to bring into the camps, an awful lot of them are really undiscovered, especially as producers, because they have a lack of self-belief. And the wonderful thing, as Violet was saying about all of the situation right now, is that because people can't be their own worst enemy, sitting in the room going, I can't say anything because someone will criticize me, there's no one else there. So it's like, it's all then down to you. There's no one to stop you except yourself. So then it's like, do you have the guts to like get out there and try and do it? Because
it's actually really cool that everyone's
with this stuff.
It's great that everyone's on an even playing field right now, especially for us. And finding talent has been super easy, just because I'm just scrolling through Instagram a lot of the time. That's where people, I would say, mostly post beats, and just finding girls that are posting videos of themselves producing, so we can actually see how good they are. I'm not like, there's always that thing, that the stigma that comes to female producers, like, well, how much of this did you do yourself? But a lot of the time now we can literally just see them. They're just putting everything in themselves. They're cutting the vocals. I was on Jay Cash's Instagram live last night, and a girl popped up. She's a songwriter from Nashville, and she was like, oh yeah, well, I'm alone, so I just had to learn how to produce this. And this beat was so sick. It was so sick. It was the first thing she'd ever produced. So it's really interesting what people are being pushed to do. It's the same as, content is king. Girls are having to, that like element of being in the room and physically having to like kind of open the door is just gone. Everyone's just building their own doors, and it's really interesting to see what's happening. And this has only been 3 weeks in. 6 months down the line, I'd be really
that's why I always say that I'm anti-school. I'm terribly anti-school, because the best producers I've ever worked with can't read a fucking note. They bought something, threw away the instructions, just figured out how to use it, and said, fuck, this sounds good, fuck, that sounds good. And they become the best producers that, frankly, I've ever worked with.
Agreed.
No, I think that's the thing, is having a breathing space that's so important, and everybody right now has the opportunity to have that. It's the most beautiful thing imaginable. Yeah. And I think people also have the opportunity to stop, which I think is equally important. Like, was it Reazy earlier was saying about, having time to kind of woodshed your stuff a little bit. Sometimes I think it's really important to kind of woodshed your own brain and and some of that comes from just like sitting down with yourself and going like, who am I creatively? So that if you get distracted by like, oh, I gotta improve this, or I gotta this or this, or, you know, whatever it is that might be the distraction, you can, right now is the great time to bring you back to what makes you the unique creative person that you are. And that does mean that you have like more opportunities to throw all the rules away and just kind of start like doing the craziest thing you can possibly imagine, because there's no one to stop you.
That kind of just reminded me. I
went to music school.
Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead.
There's a lag going on. But I was just going to say, first of all, it's so cool that you guys do this. I think it's the coolest thing ever. But I was going to say, for the creatives in the Zoom, how are you guys finding, because it's like what you were saying, Charlie, there's like this beautiful part of like being forced to be still, and kind of like maybe sometimes you don't, maybe you stop writing early and you take some of the pressure off of like, because I'm feeling like the pressure of like wanting to produce content, but like trying to know when you're just kind of beating a dead horse. But so I'm curious for you guys, because the other thing is like, it's awesome, you're forced inside, you get to like really produce and dig deep if the inspiration is there, but then you go like, all of a sudden a month goes by and you haven't had any social interaction, there's no like newness to your like there's no new experiences really. So in terms of finding the inspiration or like pulling, where is everybody at with that? Like do you find like you're uninspired, or you just kind of like searching for ways to be inspired, or like?
I think I'm going back to being 14. Just like you're home alone. I grew up in a tiny village in Wales, so I didn't actually know many other musicians. And so I'm literally just kind of doing the stuff I used to do, like playing around guitar, making stupid videos, and trying to take the pressure off myself of making like the best song I've ever made. I think if you're just continually being inspired by your own ideas, I know that's really hard to like self-cycle, but I'm also just taking the pressure off. And some days I do absolutely nothing other than watch a film or read or go for a really long walk. And I think also the social interaction you have is just going to be limited to Skyping your friends. So I've been like tuning into a couple of live streams now and again, just FaceTiming a lot of friends. And also I've had this incredible interaction with a couple of friends where we've been teaching each other stuff, which actually would never really occur outside of this. I don't know why it started now, but a couple of different open tunings on guitar. My friend sent me a video. I taught my friend how to do a headstand, which is not music related whatsoever, but
So cool.
it's just a case of like, you're bored at home and I'm like, what would 15-year-old me really want to do right now? And I just kind of try and do that, which is way more fun than what I was doing before.
I can add some perspective just like from DJ's point of view. You know, I think Anthony could definitely relate to, for a lot of us that do, you know, play kind of open format, multi-genre music, we kind of get stuck in this routine of playing a lot of the same music and, you know, all over the world. And, you know, when we got into DJing, it wasn't really about, you know, playing top 40 songs and people pleasing. It was more about like our passion for music. And in our case, you know, we have a passion for all different types of genres of music, you know, from all different types of artists. And I think this time has really allowed me personally, just going through my library, tightening up my playlists. A lot of DJs are doing live streams where they're just playing dope music that they love. Some of these DJs have gotten a lot of attention, like D-Nice, for example, my boy MOS, just playing good music, and it resonates with people. You know, people don't want to hear the same 40 songs in a club, but for some reason that's kind of like what the format shifted to. So kind of hoping on the other side of this, people, when they go out to clubs and start going back out to venues and stuff, will kind of be expecting a little more of an eclectic style of DJing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we had that conversation a couple of weeks ago, Paul, too, about, you know, really taking this time to get organized, you know? And even on a producer perspective, too, like, you know, I took a full day last week and just organized my samples and all these different sounds and did all that nerd work that, like, the next day I got on my laptop and made something in, you know, 15 minutes that would have probably took me an hour and a half. So really getting tight and organized right now. It's really
organization is key, and especially not just for DJs, but for producers and writers. You know, like we have all these great ideas, and you know, ideas are great sitting on a hard drive, but you know, if you don't have them organized and everything,
so many ideas forgotten too. You know, like so many songs that are like, oh wow, this is dope. Like let's get some fresh ears on this. Sending it out to people to collaborate. It's definitely
just like adding to the overall sentiment of like what everyone's saying. I really think for creatives and musicians and music people, this pandemic, you know, as crazy as it is, could end up being a blessing in disguise in many ways. You know?
Yeah, I was watching something the other day. You know, will.i.am was saying how, you know, after 9/11 happened, they wrote "Where Is the Love," and it literally changed their entire lives. So I feel like right now, you know, I feel like, you know, we were kind of, and coming from the DJ world, Paul, you know, we were playing a lot of trap music the last year, 2 years. It'd be really nice to get some real like emotion and feeling back into music, especially in the clubs. And it's going to be really interesting to see the type of records that come from this. I'm excited in that aspect to just really see what some of these incredible minds come up with during this pandemic.
Well, it's the same thing I said before. I mean, when can we ever think in history when we've been in a situation where pretty much all of mankind have been told to stay away from each other? So I often think about that moment when we're all allowed to be back with each other and how powerful that's going to be, you know?
I just realized we're 10 minutes past 2, but we're going to keep going for a little bit longer. If anyone does have to leave, they can hop off. If not, we're going to answer a couple questions from the Q&A. So Tony, if you have some good questions, we can ask the panelists. Let's start on that right now.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a few good ones here. Here's one. It says, if someone has done the research and is confident they can provide value and be prepared given the opportunity, how would you all suggest one goes about approaching someone as busy as you all? How do you like to be approached? Anyone want to talk about that?
I'd say with something that just syncs right up with what I already got going on. Just, you know, in terms of, not even to say I'm that busy of a person, but, you know, just coming off this chat, if you know I do like esports and music, just make a play, put the play together and bring it, I think makes the most sense. So that is the easiest. You know, it's always hard to, you can't pour from an empty cup is what I would say. So you should try and make it as easy as possible for people.
Cool.
I always try to say, listen, a few things. As a publisher, for example, I would always tell people, don't come into my office and go, I've written 1,000 songs. I don't give a fuck. I want to hear one really great song. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Don't contact people on Sundays. Sounds stupid, but it's true.
I go by that
respect that we all have lives. We all have families. We are all trying to just live our lives. Respect that we conduct our business differently. Like, for example, you know, I do my demo listening on Monday. That's the way my life is structured. So if you send something to me on a Wednesday, don't hit me up on a Friday freaking out, wondering what I think of it, because I haven't listened to it yet. Plus, as well, I know we live in our own bubble, but none of us are sitting around at our computer just waiting for this amazing song to come in so we can listen to it and then blow our minds and then change our whole lives.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say too, and even just coming from the perspective of like me when I first came to LA and like trying to be really respectful with how I approached labels and how I approached people I wanted to work with, I feel like not having an expectation, because as soon as you email somebody your demo or you go in with this expectation that they're gonna like respond or they're gonna give you like what you're looking for, it's almost like flirting and expecting the person's gonna be attracted to you, and it's like that's not really the coolest thing. Like you say your piece, you do your work, and then like if nobody responds or if they don't get back to you for a long time, it's like it is so odd to me when people get really like angry that you haven't responded, or they get kind of like sassy with you. Mm-hmm. It's like the ultimate. I just feel like you never should be putting all your eggs in one basket anyways. These are all just people that come into your life, and if you have the opportunity and you feel like you have like the fucking best song ever. Sorry, are we allowed to swear? I don't know. I don't feel like nobody has sworn yet.
Yeah.
Shocking. I feel like I haven't heard very many swear words.
I was really holding off.
We keep it real on this webinar. So
plus, I just wanted to add to that when it comes to Rachael, and I think this is a really important thing. As I've said before, I've run 29 song camps. I know a lot of songwriters. I know songwriters that when I first did a camp with them, they were nobody, and now they're A-list songwriters. And I think you have to respect the fact, and I think Rachael can back me up with this, is that when Rachael and I first started doing things together, I did a lot for Rachael. I helped her a lot in her career, but I never, ever approached Rachael with this kind of like, oh yeah, fucking do this for me now. I did this for you. I respect the fact of where she's gone in her career. I respect the protocols of how to approach her, and I respect the work that she's done. And I think you always have to keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's awesome.
And then I'll just throw down and add something to that. And again, I mean, this is just kind of one perspective. I'm also of the opinion of like, build something incredible and people are going to start to reach out to you regardless. And if you can't reach the executives, reach the creatives that are popping, and get in with the producer that's got waves and noise building. And if you're a songwriter, send demos to the producers that are kind of on their way up and get a placement there, and then do that a million times until labels are starting to hit you up. But if you're sending music out to people that listen to super grade A music and your stuff isn't on par, you can also potentially burn a relationship and then kind of lose credibility. So there's two ways about it. It's like you also have to understand how developed you are before you start soliciting your music. And that's kind of hard to tell because no one's going to be straight with you about it. Everyone's going to say it's good unless you got some mean friends.
Don't anyone shit on me, but A&Rs are probably number 10 down the ladder of who I would ever approach with music. But I want people to hear.
Agreed. Totally.
They're also getting so much stuff to listen to. Charlie and I, when we first started She Writes, were both unpublished and unmanaged, and we went to PRS to a music foundation to get funding for our first camp, and we were just super tired of knocking on doors, especially both of us in the UK weren't being taken seriously as songwriters or artists, and it was extremely frustrating. So instead of complaining about it, we put on a camp. It was the first one in Europe, right? Yeah, first one ever in Europe, first all-female camp in Europe. And then people just assumed we knew what we were doing, which was a lie. I Googled how to make company. It was extremely unprofessional. And then after that, YouTube contacted us, and we did one in LA and did all these other ones. Sweden were like, hey, can you come over and run this camp for us? And we were like, yeah. I mean, it was Charlie's first ever camp that she was also running. She'd never been on a camp before. And I think at the end of the day, like, we knew that there was no point in hitting up people that were way too big for us, so we just started with all the women we knew, and as a result we were both signed and published within a year. So I think it's a case of just work with the people around you at your level and try and build what you've got now, and eventually if you build something, people do come to you. We've been continually shocked by the people that message us that want to work with us, and I think that it's just a case of time and patience and not chasing something, but just moving forward and meeting people along the way rather than like running after someone.
It's like anything in life. You have to crawl before you walk, before you run, before you sprint, before you marathon.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, that's incredible advice, guys. And I personally think that there's going to be a big surgence in female producers. She Writes is going to have a big impact with that. So obviously, I think there's a lot of synergy with Jam Compass, and we would love to get involved down the road once we're
By the way, would you take someone in drag? Because I dress in drag a lot, and I'd love to come to She Writes.
We are, for the record, we are super open when it comes to non-binary, trans, and the gender spectrum, the LGBTQ plus community is totally open to our camps. I'm not sure where drag falls on that scale, and I can't speak for that necessarily. But yeah, we do run a super open policy with our camps.
Well, sadly, I'm super binary. I just like dressing in women's clothing. That's all.
Good for you, man. Good for you. I feel the same. I love dressing in women's clothing.
There we go. That's good to know, Chad. Thank you. So let me let's do one more question. We're almost approaching an hour and 20 minutes, which this has been incredible, guys. So thank you very much. Let's do one more question and we could wrap it up.
Okay. Let's see. Here's a quick question. As a raise of hands, does anyone personally know someone with coronavirus?
Yes, I do.
All right, cool. And then let's do one more question here. In this climate with inflated numbers for stream farms and fake followers via social media, how do you all sift through the smoke and mirrors, and what parameters do you use to decipher what is real and what has potential to grow?
You say that one more time, sorry?
Basically, like, how do you know if someone's real or not, you know, when there's all these like inflated numbers and fake followers, and like how do you sift through that and find something that's real and has the potential to grow?
The goosebumps you get on your arms when you hear it, or the feeling you get when you're in the city and it's just popping.
Yeah.
For me, like hearing artists local in Philadelphia, like the radio DJs, they catch them at the perfect time. But it's just, for me, culturally relevant.
Music started with the ears and music ends with the ears. I don't care what's going on. If I hear it and it does something to me.
Yeah.
You know, people would always say to me, like, when I was a publisher, like, well, how do you know a hit? And I would say, well, doesn't the very word explain how you know? It's because it just hits you. I never have to think about, is this good? Is this not good? Something just hits you or it doesn't hit you, you know? And I still feel the same way.
Paul, from the DJ side, how do you, I mean, you know, we've been doing this a while. I mean, there's a certain feeling I know that we get when we hear a record, and we pretty much know instantly, 15 seconds probably. What do you think?
I think it's kind of like down the middle. Sometimes the first time, you know, you hear a record,
That's
you
true.
know, and then sometimes it's, you know, just over and over again, you hear it and you start to have that emotional connection to a record. But yeah, I mean, I think these days, you know, DJs used to break records, at least in clubs, a lot more. I think now music is broken through all these kind of different channels and almost like hits the clubs like last. It's kind of weird. You know, I feel like the DSPs and TikTok and all these new platforms are kind of breaking and dictating what music is being played in clubs, other than maybe like Atlanta, where a lot of hip hop is broken through the clubs in Atlanta. But I feel like everywhere else, yeah, that's just kind of my experience.
I know, like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, when we were heavy in the electronic world, like, you know, songs were being broken at major festivals. So
yeah,
it's gonna be interesting to see, you know.
Yeah, well, there's obviously been a shift. You know, the blogs and the internet were fresh and new. That was dictating a lot of the direction of music. Now, I think because of the DSPs consolidating all that power with their playlists and all that, and the popularity of TikTok and all these new apps, I think that's really kind of taken over.
And Anthony,
real quick, what percentage of your music do you think you find in playlists versus like just doing your own A&R?
For Politik?
Is that for Paul?
Yeah, that was for Paul.
Oh, for me, they say Anthony. Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Oh, no, I'm just curious with you as a DJ who plays like clubs and festivals, how much influence does playlisting have on your music selection?
That's a good question. So a lot of people ask me, non-DJs, just, you know, my friends, where do you discover music? You know, there's obviously record pools that me and Anthony and DJs use that, you know, have direct pipeline to all the labels, so they get all the, you know, music first. So that's usually the first place that we'll go and just kind of see, you know, what's coming out, what came out today. Playlists are a big part of discovering music. Obviously, the big Spotify playlist, Rap Caviar, Most Necessary. There's a few other users that I follow that just have great taste. That's kind of like the secret weapon. There's a few YouTubers that I follow also with great taste. At the end of the day, it's all about great taste with music curators and where you're finding music. So yeah, mostly record pools, playlists, some social media, you know, some of the records that are moving on TikTok and people posting on Instagram. But the majority of it, I would say, record pools and playlists. Yeah.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah, and some of those record pools too, for the audience that doesn't know, DJ City, Headliner Music Club, Direct Music Service, some of the top ones that I use. Paul probably the same.
Yep.
And then Anthony, to close it out, what are your thoughts from a label standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, some of the points I already brought up, like Troy and Chad brought up about feeling it and kind of getting like a sense for how the artist is reacting in his own city speaks volumes. More so from a digital perspective, though, we kind of exercise the due diligence to really dig into these artists that are coming to the table with these large numbers and trying to validate whether or not it's smoke and mirrors, as brought up before, or if it's the real deal. Some of that is really just requires the sort of like tedious task of scrolling through countless feeds of comments and the type of comments that these artists are getting. You can kind of, you know, you can spot a bot as a funny way to put it. And sometimes, you know, there's also sort of analytical tools that we as well use on the label side that have been getting better as almost basically as crafty and coy as these sort of deception methods of creating relevancy are getting. We're getting probably just as good as being able to spot it and realizing when something is a lot of hype and paid for. So I think that's the kind of taking a different stance at what everyone mentioned before. We actually kind of dig into the numbers and try to validate whether something's legit. You know, we look at the source of streams. If a record has 3 million streams on Spotify, 98% of the streams are coming from Indonesia, but the artist is from, you know, Broward County, Florida. Like something's not adding up there. So, you know, it's just kind of really digging into the numbers. And when I was at Atlantic, we actually hired a member from our data team to a new position at the time that was called a data storyteller. And literally she would kind of just do that. She would tell a story with the data. So really diving into, you know, what is available to us and basically just chopping those numbers up as refined as we can.
So long story short, you can't fake the labels, the major labels.
Well, you know, I won't say that we're 100% accurate all the time, but you know, we're getting better at being able to catch deception at the front door.
You guys are definitely doing your homework. That's for
yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
All right, awesome. Well, I want to thank everyone for being on today's webinar. We really appreciate having everyone on and giving their
Also, listen, man, I noticed there was a lot of questions in the Q&A. This isn't self-promotion. This is truly just trying to help. My Instagram is The Song Space. So if anybody wants to get in touch with me, I'm totally available. If you want to hit me up and ask me anything, please go right ahead.
And we also have our Slack group, which Tony, can you post it one more time? We urge the community to jump on to our Slack group. There's subcategories there that you could start conversation, and we're ultimately building the community on the Slack group for when the app is ready in a few months, and we will be transitioning the community over into the app and, you know, providing a ton of opportunity and amazing tools for musicians and executives and even lawyers like Abby. So again, thank you guys so much for being on. Thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you for having me, bro.
Stay safe out there during these crazy times. We're gonna get through this, and I think we'll be in a better position when we get out. If anyone has any last thoughts or comments, please do so, and then we'll be wrapping up.
Follow Jam Compass on IG.
That's it.
Amazing. Thanks for having us, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks you guys so much. Take care.